any audio, I don't think. Have we any audio, please? Can you tell us in the chat? Looks like it. Everybody can hear me? Just give us a shout. And in the meantime, I'll just wish everybody a good evening and welcome to tonight's live stream with Paul Sinclair. And it's Friday the 13th, if you haven't guessed already. So, we aren't going to mention anything about gremlins or anything like that. And just hope we can get through this without any of that stuff happening. So, without further ado, I think what we're going to do is just publish an advertisement for Chris Evers' live event next year. It's the conference of 2021, and if I can grab let's have a look, see if I can get the right one. And where is it gone? Conference pick, there we go. There you go, guys. So I'll just mention the conference. I'll read it out. The 4th Encounter OLM 2021 conference, and that's the 21st and the 22nd of August. So let's hope, for everybody's sake and everybody who wants to book and everybody who wants to go, that these events will happen next year. So basically, we've got a great lineup. It's of course headlining, if you can call it headlining, is Peter Robbins. We've got Philip Mantle and Paul Sinclair will be there. So if you want to see Paul, that's the event to turn up to next year. And I won't read through the rest on the list, but they're all good speakers. And it sounds to me as if it's going to be a pretty good conference, and the one really not to miss, I would suggest. Okay, moving on, we're just going to plug Paul Sinclair's new webpage, which he's got up and running. It's partly functional, but it's mainly there if you want to add any reports that you may have or you've heard from other people, credible reports, where you can then input these into the web page. So the Truth Proof web page address is truthproof.uk. So basically that's easy enough to remember, and it's building up nicely, and that looks like a pretty good website there. Also, I've got to mention that we're going out on JBL Radio Facebook page. It'll be going this show now, live streamed with a few seconds delay, out on the JBL web page. JBL is a radio station that I'm partly involved in, and I do have a radio slot on there on the Saturday. So if you go to the Facebook page, you'll find the address, and if you really want to listen to me, then I'll be on tomorrow. Okay, so moving on, what we've got left, we've got another shameless plug for Paul, and it is the Amazon webpage where you can buy all the books, and now he's got 4 books out there, and they're selling really, really well. They're quite popular. If you want to buy one, nip over to Amazon, get your order in, and get one if you haven't already had one or bought one or read one. Absolutely brilliant reading. I can testify to that. But yeah, okay. So I think without further ado, we will try and bring Paul Sinclair. Paul, how are you doing, mate? How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, Les, and thanks for the plugs for the books. I need to say that the books are also available on truthproof.uk website as well. You know, I don't know if everybody uses Amazon, but they're there. But enough of that from me. All good. Friday the 13th. Let's hope we manage to get through next hour or so. Pretty much, I don't know, interruption free, shall we say. I can't see myself on the screen here, guys. I'm not bothered providing I'm on. Do you know what I mean? Can people see it all up and running on your end?
Looks like it, Paul. Let's have a look.
Yeah, that's all good. Yeah. So basically, last week we talked about Wilsthorpe, didn't we? And we did think that it were going to take a little bit longer, and then we got lots and lots of questions. And I'm quite happy to answer questions again tonight if anybody wants to put them in block capitals and just ask us anything. You know, we'll have a go at answering it. If not, we'll just sort of hit the ground running and carry on with Wilsthorpe. Have you got anything that you want to ask, Les? Is any questions there, or shall we go?
Yeah, I think where we left off last week was we'd reached up to the 24th of August of these accounts, and I think we need to pick up from there. And
good point. I think we need a quick overview, just in case anybody's in here who hadn't sort of didn't hear what we were talking about. It's about the UFO-related events from 2009, and we've called it Wilsthorpe event because it culminated for me with an old couple's sighting of objects, which we're going to get to towards end of this little bit of a talk about Wilsthorpe. But basically throughout 2009, and I'd started early in the year, I was receiving lots and lots of UFO reports. So we'd gone all the way through, and last week we'd reached August. So I think we better start there, because it'd be unfair for the majority of people that might still be in here to go through it all again. So August, I think it was August 24th, and there were reports around Scarborough Castle. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Scarborough Castle, but it's a ruin, and it's on edge of cliffs overlooking the sea, of fireballs being seen above Scarborough Castle. Now, I do realise that, you know, a lot of people associate these globes of light and Chinese lanterns, so that could be an explanation for it. However, as we get further into this story, you might realise that something else were going off. Around the 24th as well, a group of students near the spa saw globes of light travelling towards them. They were quick to stress that they didn't think these were fireballs. They'd got their tutor with them as well, simply because it were a windy night and they looked like they were under some kind of intelligent control. Before they got to them, they took a right turn and headed out to sea. So that's a sighting, Scarborough. So we've just gone up the coast. We're staying in August, on the 29th and the 30th of August, respectively. I think it's a couple on the Scarborough Road. They claim that they've seen with the daughter, they're on holiday, an oval-shaped light in the sky, a glowing orange oval-shaped light. It was seen near Caton as well. It was reported in the newspaper. Now, what's interesting, I mean, these people, they were on holiday. I think they were from Wales. It interested them so much that they contacted the local newspaper to tell them about this. And you know, unless something is quite impacting, you're not going to do that and break into your holiday, are you? So I found that report interesting. I put it on ILF UFO website back in 2009 at the time. And I also need to stress that a lot of these reports, well, all of them, bulk of them, were on the ILF UFO website. So, but then I didn't capitalise on the Wilsthorpe information until 2014, when I started writing the first book, and it all just pulled together. So it had always been there. So 30th of August, fisherman on harbour, trawlerman, claims that he's looking out to sea. He's not in his boat, he's on the harbour, and he can see 6 luminous spheres of light in a line on the horizon. Now, that's sort of typical of what people are seeing. Everybody will have heard me explaining about these lights and my views on them before. So I think that's another good example of when you've got sort of seasoned trawlermen who are coming forward and reporting these things to you. Then we'll jump back to Scarborough, staying on the 30th of August. And there were a newspaper clipping, I think it was at Scarborough Evening News, and it said, mystery of the Old Town helicopter. So Scarborough's Old Town, and what it basically involved is, in the early hours of the morning, residents from Scarborough's Old Town, quite a lot of people, left their homes. Some of them are about to get up and out of bed, because there's an helicopter, a large black or dark helicopter, hovering and within the grounds of Scarborough Castle, which is quite incredible, really. We'd had all these lights seen, these perceived fireballs and things. They contacted the military, relevant bodies contacted the military. First, it got established it wasn't the police helicopter. It's not a massive castle, and these were big helicopters. We're talking about something like a Chinook or a Merlin. The actual witnesses reported it to be the size of the Sea King, but not yellow. It wasn't the Air Sea Rescue one. That were ruled out. They said it wasn't them anyway. The police ruled out their helicopter. The military were contacted. They said it wasn't them. So it's in air what it were about. A ball of light had been seen in and around the grounds of the castle. So whether the helicopter were connected to this ball of light, not connected, as you know what I'm saying, whether it were there for that reason, I can't possibly say, but I think there's a good chance that there was some connection there. Then we come to my home in Bridlington, and I wish I'd got the footage here to show you. I've got the footage, but I've not got it to Les. We played it at the OLM conference, I don't know, the first one that we ever did when we went through the talk. And I just stepped out into the garden. I could hear the thumping of helicopters, like thunderous noise. And there's 2 Merlin helicopters above my home, not very high up. They've got the back doors open of the helicopters. I managed to stick a Sony VX2100 camcorder on them and film them. Don't ask me why. I haven't got a reason, but they were flying around. You can see the personnel inside. I thought they were taking photographs, but I didn't see cameras, but they were there, and I can't understand in a built-up area why they'd be there. They did 2 or 3 circles, enough time for me. I've always got a camera with me. My girls would tell you, and my wife will tell you, there's always a camera kind of handed, So what the connection was there, I don't know. There were Eurofighters sort of rattling rooftops and all sorts of things happening. As I say, the back ramp doors were open, and these were Merlins, and seemingly observing us in September. Or it could have been somebody else they were observing, but they were there. They weren't miles away. They were over the garden. I didn't know nothing about Wilsthorpe at that time, keen to stress. I also got footage of, is it AWACS circling? Don't mean my home, that'd be ridiculous, but circling the area from my back garden, and I live about 200 yards from seafront. So you'd got this activity. Then you got drones and the Eurofighters that were going at incredible speeds, over the rooftops. And I've got a bit of footage of them. But then the website, ILF UFO website, were contacted by a police officer. He'd got a story to tell me. There were 2 police officers, well, a PCSO and a regular police officer. And the first one, I think it was the first one, he was travelling during the night from Barmston. I realise some people won't know these locations, towards Bridlington. I think it's the A165 road. And as he's travelling, he gets towards the very, very small, I don't even think it's a village of Fraysthorpe. There's a few farms and a few houses. And as he's driving down towards Bridlington, a car's coming towards him, and its headlights dimmed, and it stopped. So what he did, he got up. You've got to forgive me, people. I've just said he got up, and Les has just stood up in his chair. So he just thrown me. I am sorry. So what he did, he stopped his car to. God, that threw me. That he stopped his car to assist or to see what the problem was. So this car's just stopped in the road, opposite side of the road, headlights have dimmed, and as he does that, claims that a triangle lifts from the edges and flies out to sea. So there's another witness there with the car. I've spoken to the police officer. There's another one, once again near Barmston, where the lights and the engine of the police car dimmed, the lights dimmed and the engines didn't stop, it didn't stall, but everything went dark for a few moments, and he says that a large dark shape passed over him going out to sea. So you can see there's a lot of activity. Back in 2009, I did report one of these to the police UFO database, and I think the old website, which has now been closed, I think the internet being what it has archived some of its pages. So if you typed in ILF UFO, you'll probably find these reports back from 2009. As they were coming in, I would just add in a few paragraphs and a few lines and doing it back then. You know, it doesn't add any more proof to the fact that what these people are telling me. They could be lying, but I'm reporting it as truthfully as I can back in 2009, and I've no reason, by the way, to believe any of these people were lying to me. Once again, I don't see what's to gain by coming forward and telling me such a story. So
yeah, just to interrupt you there, I mean, I've got to agree with you. These reports, nobody's going to lie on something like this, I wouldn't have thought.
no.
You know, it's not Beano time, it's not story time, is it? It's, you know, these are people with jobs, have got jobs, they've got reputations. They're not going to lie. I don't think, in my opinion, they're not going to lie to you.
I would agree. I just need to there's a guy, Michael Parks, just asked me what was the name of the military unit in the UK. I've had some information on this recently, but I haven't got it at top, you know, to fall off my tongue at this moment. So I'm sorry, Michael, but I know exactly what you're on about, and I have had information sort of relating to this, as in it actually relates to Dark Forest project, what we're working on. And I've also seen in the chat room, I'm just about to speak about something now, and this guy was with me, and he's called Peter, and he's in chat room now, and I didn't expect to see him in here, but it doesn't matter because it don't make anything that we're doing any less true. We might want to comment. So 2009, I don't think I've got exact date, but all this activity had been taking place, and I was finding myself, as usual, up on the wolds, because I didn't realise all this stuff were the actual hub of it, the hive of it, was centred around Wilsthorpe and Barmston. Even though there's reports coming in, we've still got lots of activity on East Yorkshire wolds, and me and Steve Ashbridge at that time were capitalising on it and getting out 2 or 3 times a week. But this particular night, this guy we'll call Peter came out with me. I asked him, he'd expressed a bit of an interest, and I asked him if he wanted to come out with me. We'd also looked at a few other things. Before this, not connected, the wind turbine, alleged UFO incident that hit the wind turbines and things like that. But I mean, we didn't connect any of that to a UFO, even though the people wanted it to at the time. So jumping back to it, so I'd got my works van, and we decided to have a run out, and we thought, where's the best vantage point to look onto Bridlington, onto Wilsthorpe and beyond, and we thought the top of Woldgate, because you've got a massive view then of the town of Bridlington and Wilsthorpe and everywhere, right to Hull and over the sea. Well, this particular night, we jumped in the van, we went up there. I can't remember the time. Let's say it's 7:30. It's dark. Well, it's dark. It's thick with fog, so it must have been later, because, you know, I don't know, but it must have been later. So we're in the van, we're overlooking Woolsthorpe, and it's thick with fog. So we realised that it's pretty much a waste of time. The only vehicle to pass us that night was a Police Scientific Investigations Unit van, and it passed us and it went towards Rutston. And we sort of realised we were wasting us time. My idea that we could see all these homes and lights of the A165 road and everything were wasted. So I said to him, before we go back, let's have a run down and get on A615 road. There's a lay-by there. I think there's a van there, a burger van during the day, and that we'll pull in there and observe, because it's like in line with the properties at Wilsthorpe and everything. So he agreed, and we did that. As we pulled away onto this basically single track road at Woldgate Crossroads, a car headlights appeared at the back of us, and this, apart from the Police Scientific Investigation Unit van, we didn't see anything else. This car followed us then all the way through Bridlington, through Carnaby, and then we were that foggy. We were going to turn into this lay-by for to observe or just to sit and sort of, I don't know, take in the atmosphere. And the only property before that is one solitary bungalow. And I put the indicator on and turned into it. I'd got the wrong road. Literally, there's no street lights. So I realised straight away and put the van into reverse, only to realise that the car that had followed us had stopped behind us. And this guy who will vouch for this, it had stopped behind us. So I reversed onto the road, and I thought that was a bit odd, and I drove off. I think the car pulled into that drive. Don't recall it going up the drive. It was strange, and something tells me it was a Rover, but that's got any bearing on anything. So literally 500 yards later, we get the correct turning, and we turn into this lay-by. The only things in the lay-by, and I'm not sure if police scientific investigation unit vans in the darkness, no lights on, just parked up, overlooking the area where people had been seeing these objects. And we'll get to the people who'd been seeing them in a moment. They were like an half football black glass dome or perspex dome on top of the van, which we thought was a camera. We sat there, I don't know, I think Peter would tell you, I don't think we were there more than 10 minutes. It felt a bit uncomfortable because we realised that there's a police presence there, but we couldn't see any, there were no evidence of police there. We're on a sort of lonely road, in dark, in fog, and we pulled up behind them. So we just drove off, went back to Bridlington, I dropped him off, and that was that. Now, prior to that, and around that time, I was contacted by a lady who lived in the village of Barmston, which is probably 2 miles away from Wilsthorpe. Well, you've got Fraysthorpe and then Wilsthorpe, so they'll be 2 and 3 miles away from each other. And she contacted me. Me and Steve Ashbridge went to speak to her. We spent a full afternoon with this lady, Eileen they called her, a lovely lady, and she explained that their property has no frosted glass windows in the bathrooms or anything, because all she's looking onto are open fields. There's nobody to look in. There's nothing to worry about. And she got up during the night, used the bathroom, and she's washing her hands at sink, and no lights on. And she looks out of the window, and over in the fields at Wilsthorpe, basically where we parked up, in between where we parked, where the vans were, there was some arable land, and then there's the flats, and there's Wilsthorpe. That is Wilsthorpe. And she said she could see a circle of lights in the sky. Now, there's a roundabout at Wilsthorpe that's got a circular light on the top of it, much lower. And, I was sort of keen to ask, are you sure this? She says, no, I could see the roundabout. I've lived here lots of years. I know exactly what the roundabout looks like, because I spoke to her husband as well. Excuse me. And he'd no interest whatsoever in this. And he just convinced her. Didn't convince her, he just told her she'd seen roundabout. Said it wasn't the roundabout. It was a huge circle. She said they looked like pearls, like yellow glowing pearls in the sky. She said they seemed to be moving, giving off a slight haze. She's looking at these things, and then she goes to bed. She can't settle. She's told her husband, she's told Eddie, that's what they call her husband, she's told him. He's told her to go to sleep, you've seen roundabout. And she's disturbed by this, it really is. She gets back up. She says they're still there, but they seem a bit closer. It bothered her so much, I'm sure Steve will remember this, that she felt unnerved. She felt like she'd made some kind of connection with whatever it was with over the fields. And to the point where she were a bit, I know it's a paranoid, that's probably the wrong word, but she were very much unnerved by it, and felt like whatever she was looking at was now looking at her. So that were Eileen's sighting. And then I think it was a short time after, she had another sighting, and we went to see her again, and she'd never had any before this. So we're not talking a long period of time after. And this was just as in evening time, same fields, but what she saw were really interesting, because I've not really heard out described like this before. And she said they looked like upside down ice cream cones, and there was 2 of them, and they were an orangey yellow colour. She said, and they landed. or at least they came down. And as far as she's aware, they landed in the fields. I went to those fields. I spent some time there. I could find no evidence of anything. But you know, that's Eileen's sighting, and that was at the same time that we were looking. Me and this other guy, Peter, and we saw the police scientific investigation unit then. So, is there a connection to all that? I don't know. It's interesting, nevertheless, isn't it? I'll just ask Les. Have we got any questions or anything, Les?
I think we've got some questions coming in.
Okay.
Right, just bear with me, Paul. I've just got to. Okay, I mean, here's a good question from John. John 4354. Hi, Paul. Do you use any night vision when you're sky watching? Anything, and is there any machine you can recommend?
I've recently purchased a Pulsar thermal imaging camera, and it's really good. I mean, it takes a bit of controlling, and what I mean, it's not hard to hold, and it's not jumping about, but you've got to be very slow with it, else it looks like you're going at 100 miles an hour as you're scanning around, as Les will probably agree. But it is good. I mean, you can pick out, you're picking out an heat signature. So if for instance, we're in these forests, or we're in any woodland in the night, you're pretty much stumped with camcorders that me and Les have got, because they might cost, you know, a few £1,000s, but I think unless you're going to spend £30,000, you're not going to get a camcorder that can just about, not see in the dark, but it's equipped to do that job. They have night vision, the camcorders we've got, but I don't think they're expected to do the job that we're doing, or we have been doing in these forests. So the thermal, it's a Pulsar, and I think it's a QX30, and I got it from a place called Bushware. They did a good deal on it, and yeah, it's a good camera, or scope. It's a monocular. I've also got some night vision goggles, which are really good. So you know, I'd recommend that kind of equipment. Basically, we try and hit it with everything. You know, you know, Bob Brown's got a nice camera that he takes out with him. We've got the camcorder, so you go equipped on a night. You never know if you've got a bit of moonlight. The camcorders that we use cope adequately, and I wouldn't bother with the thermal or the others. But you know, if you're out on cliff tops and it's in fog, and you're in the fog and you're a little bit edgy because somebody's reported something unusual, you've got the thermal camera that can see through it. It's going to pick that heat signature up. Yeah. I don't know whether that's answered your question.
Yeah, I think well, it probably has, Paul. And I think, just to add to that, Paul, I think with a thermal camera, you've got like different settings. So obviously that's anything where you're in an environment, you can change them settings to that environment. Okay.
That's correct. So there's a forest setting, and there's different colour palettes, and we've been experimenting with it, and we've noticed that certain colour palettes suit certain environments, just as you've said, Les. And you know, I'm pleased I've got it. I mean, it weren't cheap, but I know it's going to get quite a bit of use, and I think if you're going to do these things, if you're going to seriously try and capture something, then you've got to take right equipment out with you. You know, I mean, I think biggest problem for us is budget. I mean, just, you know, everybody likes the best equipment, but we're obviously doing what everybody else does. We're just buying what we can within our price range.
That's right, and I think the starting base price for these thermal cameras is, for anything reasonably good, is £2,000, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. You know, so that's about where we're at with it. You know, and I know there's lots of different makes, and I'm not going to badmouth any of these makes, but let's just say that I'm happy enough with this Pulsar. It's good.
I've got a question from Lisa Odd.
Hi, Lisa.
She's asking, did you see any military helicopters yesterday, Paul? Very low and loud here. No,
and I think Lisa's, from what I can gather from previous questions, in Weaverthorpe, and so obviously that I'm assuming that's where you've seen them. I didn't see anything, no, I have to admit. And what were they, just out of interest? Were they the Chinooks or Ospreys? You know, she might be able to tell us.
Yeah, Lisa might come back on the chat and tell us about that, Paul. Okay, Danny Egan, welcome to tonight's stream, Danny. good question, and I think it's people. It's a reoccurring question. People do ask this question, Paul. Have you seen or heard anything on the Black Range Rover? So, for those who don't know about the Black Range Rover, can you just give us a little bit of a brief
Yeah, well,
story
we
there?
haven't done, and Bob Brown had update for this. I think it was 2019 anyway. But if I've said another date, I apologise. But I think it was 2019. It was definitely around September time, and me and Bob were on the cliff tops, and this very good, high quality, high end Range Rover Vogue went onto the open farmland with its lights off, blacked out windows in the night, went around the fields and came up and parked at the back of us in complete darkness, no lights on, nothing. They must have been using night vision equipment to be able to drive it because it was dark. So we've not seen any more of it. But I'll tell you one interesting thing. We think we might have seen it before, but it's only when you start putting things together. September and October this year, there were cryptid sighting by two different people on Jewson Lane and on Bempton Lane in Bridlington. Pretty dark, remote place. Not remote as such, but a bit more isolated than in town. And what me and Bob noted, coming from Bempton after we've been to Cliff Tops odd times, on the end of that lane, we have seen a black Range Rover Vogue parked in a field with the lights off, and we've thought to ourselves, we thought it was farmer or something. We didn't connect it to one we'd seen because the one we'd seen were just on remote cliff tops. This is actually just off a main road. But I'm just wondering, we spoke about it the other day, why it would be in the field, and it's in close proximity to where people have reported this unusual cryptid. so I mean, to answer his question though, no, we've no more reports. I haven't got anything else to add to this Range Rover Vogue.
I think we've got a question here from. Let's just get my camera on. There we go. I'm back again, Paul. Gary Spudger Brinklow.
Hi, Gary.
Welcome to the show, Gary. Question: was it 2009 when green lights were seen over Doncaster and the electric windmills lost one of its propellers?
It could well have been, Gary. I looked at this, and we went to look at the wind farms. Me and the guy I've actually just been talking about, who were with me when the police scientific investigation vans were parked up. So it could well have been. I know they were taught that it were UFO related, and they were also taught that they were testing a military aircraft, and that's what maybe impacted with the wind farm. I'm not in a position to say. As regards being UFO related, it could have been. I don't know. I didn't really look into it in that much detail. I saw it in all sort of tabloids, and I think they sensationalised a lot of it.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, one appeared in a state of destruction in Lincolnshire, didn't it?
I think this is the time, Les. I think this is the one.
That is the same. Is that the same one we're talking about?
They were saying how big it must have been for it to have damaged. I think it damaged one propeller and took another propeller off, but it didn't work for me. I think it would put down to some kind of metal fatiguing end anyway. I mean, I know there'll be people sat here or people listening to this later will say, yeah, well, they would say that because everybody wants. Some people just want to be a UFO related event, regardless of whether it is or it isn't.
Yeah.
And
wasn't there a lot of? Was there a lead up to that? Didn't people see lights the day before?
I think there were talk of something with tentacles, some kind of glowing object with sort of streaming tentacles attached to it that were seen as well. But I really haven't got enough information on it to confidently sort of comment.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Mysteries and monsters. Hi, Paul. Are these events sporadic, or are there patterns beginning to emerge? So, can you see any pattern where we had all this activity 2009? You could say, is there any pattern from that period right up to the present day?
There's definitely peak times when these sightings occur. I didn't see it in 2009. As I say, I was spending a lot of time on the Wolds. We were filming lots of stuff up there in 2009, and in between, bear in mind I was working 5 days a week, sometimes 6. So when these reports came in, I was just adding a paragraph to the website. These accounts that I'm telling you about today and last Friday, all come together when I found out about the old couple's sighting at Wilsthorpe, and I thought, good God, all this were happening, and there was a slow build up to it. So 2009 were a really strong year for the sightings. 1998 was a really strong year for the sightings. I don't know why. 1970 was a sort of good year for sightings, and I suppose there'll be people listening to this who'll be able to pull out other years or agree with what I'm saying. You know, it's interesting. 2014 there were quite a lot of sightings. I mean, as regards this year, for myself personally, we haven't seen a great deal at all, but we have been hearing about it. One yesterday, but I'll tell you about that in a moment. But yeah, just it's as with anything you want, Les.
Yeah, well,
I saw Lisa said ospreys. Thank you, Lisa.
Ospreys, yeah. Just my little take on that. I was thinking, as regards patterns and events, could some of these events, and I'll bring you back to one main one, one big one, be anything to do with world events? Do you know? Can you understand where I'm coming from? I'll go back to the Bentwaters incident. I mean, they was keeping nuclear armory at them bases. The Americans weren't they?
Yeah.
All pointed towards Russia.
So are you saying you think that the UFO involvement or interaction was due to that?
Well, that's military based. So these other events where they've come up, 2009, the Wilsthorpe, and that you'll be going on to tell us did involve the military.
Oh, it did involve the military, yeah.
So you see where I'm tying some of this in.
But does the military's involvement? I mean, I believe that they must have known about all this activity. I mean, I could reel off probably 20 or 30 cases from 2009, and let's assume that 25 of them are all bogus and misinterpretations, and 5 of them are the real deal. But the military or the powers that be must have known about these things. I don't think it were any mistake that the scientific investigation vans were there that night. I need to add as well, when we pulled away, there were nobody sat in them vans. You know, we made a point of looking. There was nobody in those vans. But yet they were there. You know what I mean? In that prime location where this stuff's being seen. I don't know. So, do you want us to carry on with this, Les? Have you got more questions?
Yeah, well, just to prove, I'm just going to prove to people that this is a real family show. I think we have a message. Yeah, we've got a message from Jessica. And Jessica is your daughter, Paul.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, and Noah, your grandson, says, hello, Grandad Paul.
I know.
He's your biggest fan. So there you are. Brilliant. So give your grandson a wave there, Paul. Okay, so I think what is this resin 8R? Have you seen anything yet with the night vision goggles?
In a word, no, we haven't. I'd love to be able to say yes. With the thermal, obviously, we're just getting used to it. But I mean, you can pull out animals, and they're pretty accurate even at a distance. So you know you're looking at a deer or a badger or a hare, but nothing.
Lee Roscoe is asking.
Hi, Lee.
Hi, Lee. Welcome to the show. And did the Range Rover have any plates on it? Any number plates? Plates?
We couldn't read them. It were in darkness. It complete darkness as it pulled away, because as I say, they must have had some kind of night vision gear to be able to drive. Originally, when we first entered the cliff tops, I saw it about 500 yards away on the hillside, so it had pulled off Cliff Lane and gone onto the hill. And as we were walking, it's paralleling us, and then it veered off. I rang one of the farmers and said, "Is there anybody up here?" I don't know what they'd be doing. You know, And I told him, I explained what we'd seen, and he got back to me, rang me back. He said, there shouldn't be nobody up there, Paul. And that we didn't see anything of it. Then as me and Bob got further down, probably a mile down towards Flamborough, we settled on this seat overlooking the sea, set the cameras up, and they'd cut the corn. And it makes sense in a moment, people, why is they saying they cut the corn. Suddenly, in the darkness, I could hear the stubble crunching. And I knew instantly, I says to Bob, that vehicle's here. I didn't know it were a Vogue at the time. I said, that vehicle's here, Bob. He says, what do you mean? I can hear it. It just loomed out at darkness and parked at the back of us. And me being what I am, I think it were a couple of days later, I took a tape up and measured how far away it was, because, you know, there were a bit of grass between where we were sat and where the field was, and it was 30 foot away. So you know it was very close, and it just literally parked at the back of us. Lights off, as I've repeated, and it just sort of sat there. It didn't stay for long, 10 minutes. Bob's saying, what shall we do? And I'm saying, well, we're going to stay here. They'd have caught me, so I know they'd have caught Bob. So, you know, and then it just disappeared into darkness. I did take some photographs with the P900, but it's not equipped to take pictures in dark, and I didn't want to put flash on, so it was pretty useless exercise, you know. But they'll have known because it's got a massive infrared beam, so as I'm pressing it, they'll have seen that coming out at them. But I didn't get a number plate.
Maybe next time you come across the vehicle, maybe it might be an idea to actually try and, you know, get the number plates, obviously.
Well, without walking up to it, Les.
Well, I mean, these people probably know you're there.
Yeah, I think they knew we were there. I think
so. If they know you're there, then I don't see a problem of you trying to get their number plate. That's
you're bringing attention. You're making it an issue, then, aren't you? In my opinion. But anyway,
yeah,
we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
We won't dwell on that one. Okay, then. So Resin 8R asks, has there been any more lights under the sea lately? Have you seen any more lights? Because there was a period where you saw these 3 lights.
Yeah, me and Bob saw the formation of 3 lights under the sea back in, I think it was 2017. And I know this year, I haven't got the date now, but I did talk about it, that a guy who owns a bar in Filey, so I think it was 2 white lights and 1 purple light under the sea between Filey, Brigg and Speeton. He said they were large and they must have been about 10 miles out. And I'm sorry for repeating, guys, but it's been asked. And he said they were moving about at erratic speeds under the sea. Came out of the sea, doing the same thing, joined at one point, went back into the sea. Sounds spectacular. He watched them for an hour, and I can remember time, and it were 11:37 till 12:30. So much time he had on his hands. He rang his wife, and she came and watched it as well. You know, and I've spoken to him, and God, once again, what they got to gain from telling me this? And there were a few other things that happened around that same time, which is odd, which we've noted. But you've got to do the research to pick up on all the other bits. It's no good just sat at the keyboard taking a UFO report and adding that to a website and thinking you've done your job. Once you've got the report, if it's substantial enough, if it's good enough, then, in my opinion, start asking a few more questions, start looking around, because usually you'll find other stuff's happening, and it might not even be UFO related. And that's why I've said before that I think all of this subject, be it paranormal, be it even the spiritual side of it, it's connected in some, I don't know, some inexplicable way.
Bring my microphone up.
Try to think.
Yeah. Mark Egan asks, do you think there is a link between Farlingdale's radar base and all these strange occurrences? Because obviously, for those who don't know, Farlingdale's is a military listening base. Is that right, Paul?
Yeah.
And that's situated in the middle of the North York Moors, and obviously all the reception from whatever they want to listen to, they're in an ideal spot, aren't they?
Well, I do know that there's a lot of reported UFO activity around that location. Whether these objects are attracted to the high energy output, I don't know, because you've got, over the years, should we say, you've a lot of UFO activity reported around Staxton Wold, and just and as it would happen, the former RAF Bempton had lots of UFO reported activity around that when it was operational. and I think we jumped to it. I don't know if I've told you this, but there were a boat. It's still in Bridlington Harbour, what's called a cobble, and it's called the Imperialist. And back in 1966, I think June 1966, there were 3 fishermen. I've spoke to 2 of them. I think there's only 1 alive now, but that's beside the point. And back in 1966, they were hauling crab pots below what's known as Crab Rocks, and that's under Bempton. That's very close to the RAF base. And apologies if I've told you this before, but as they're pulling these crab pots up, they saw a reflection in the water, and they all ducked, and instinctively. And when they looked up, just above their heads is a sphere of light, the sort of size of a football. It was a milky gold colour, and I firsthand didn't say that in newspaper report. You see, I got to speak to these people by looking in the archives, and in them days they put the names of the people, and then I found these people out. So he said it was a milky gold colour, the size of a football. It was just above their heads, nearly touching. Now, what had we got in 1966 that could do that? Totally silent. I mean, some people say, oh, it'd be a drone. If you'd got a drone above your head, 3 foot away from top of your head, you'd hear it. This is a sphere of light. And I said, what happened? He said, we just saw it just for 1 or 2 seconds, and then it had gone, left a trail as it went. Like you see the slow motion blur of a sparkler. It left that as it went. What's interesting, also interesting about that sighting, there were people waiting to speak to them when they got back to, it was Flamborough at the time where it was based. No radios. What's going off? Do you know what I mean? It's an incredible. That's what, when people say, when smart people come up with explanations for what other people have seen, I find it hard to believe really competent people. They can't have been drinking, not if they want to be working out at sea. You've got to sort of take things nice and careful, haven't you? And they're claiming that they've seen this. And they interested them so much that it went into local paper, but there was somebody waiting to speak to them when they got back to shore. I mean, I had to laugh because I asked the guy, I think I've said this before, but I asked him how big it was. And he said, flirt ball. And I sort of looked at him, sort of screwed my head up, what do you mean? Flamborough terminology, and it was a football. Flirt ball size. And you know what I mean? And I don't mean out to you guys, but, it's quite funny. But, and once again, near a military base. And there were lots of things. So as someone spoke earlier about other patterns, 1963, lots and lots of UFO sightings. It came up in both these archives at Scarborough and at Bridlington, and more, that we've searched online. 1967, lots and lots of UFO events, should we say, but not just around East and North Yorkshire. When these things were happening in 2009, the Wilsthorpe stuff, there were UFO reports, I think, all over UK. It were happening. What we need is more researchers or more people. Let's not call them researchers. More people getting together and sort of throwing this at each other so that we can actually see the bigger picture. Yeah. It's all right me doing this. Go on, Les. Sorry.
Yeah, that's good. That, and we're getting some great questions in tonight. And thanks to everybody for joining us on tonight's live stream, Truth Proof live stream with Paul Sinclair, and we'll get our regulars on here, and hopefully people from other parts of the world might be joining us, Paul. So we're going to say hello to them.
Hello to everybody. It's all good. Yeah, just keep it coming. It's
question from PM. Let's have a look. Paul, any incidents in or near Leconfield? Well, I think that might spark something there, Paul, within you.
There is, but we're still looking into it. There is a sighting, a substantial sighting at Leconfield, and we're still looking into it. It's brilliant. It involves a landed object, so.
Yeah, I think I said
as with all these things, I'm sorry for sounding a bit cryptic here, people, but there are people who'll watch this who say they're researchers and they're not, but they'll want to jump on what I'm talking about and run with it. So I've learned now not to give too much away, as I think I tell people and share a lot more information than a lot of people, but some things are worth holding on to, just like what we're doing with Dark Forest at the moment. It'll be worth it, guys, when we've sort of get that stuff pushed out there. I know Les is working on some, like a bit of a teaser, should we say, so you get a better flavour of what we're going to be filming, and you'll be doing that in next month or so, will you, Les, I think?
Yes, yes, I certainly will. You know, if we're getting more lockdowns, I certainly will be doing and finishing that. Right then, we've got another question from Deborah Singleton. Welcome, Debs,
Hi,
to the show, and all the way from middle of Yorkshire, West Yorkshire. There, she's asking, have you ever done any EVP recordings in the places that you go?
Yes, we have done, yeah. And Bob Brown's bought himself, well, as part of our kit, but it's Bob's, a good tri-field meter where we've got some absolutely crazy readings. You know, you can walk with this thing on, no electrical equipment near us, leave the phones in his bags somewhere else, and nothing happens for a week, for 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden, I'll jump to your EVP bits in a minute, Deborah, and all of a sudden, this thing's just going off the scale. I took a guy up there, electronics expert. If he's in chat room, he'll know what I mean. And we took a laptop up. He'd built some really good detection equipment for different frequencies and different radio signals. And we picked a narrow band of energy, should we say, up. And it must have been omnidirectional, because wherever you pointed it, it was there. And we shouldn't have picked anything up really on the edge of the North Sea. We're waiting. We're going to get up there again. He's updated his equipment, should we say. We've got even more to go. But me and Steve Ashbridge went up there with digital voice recorders a couple of years ago. If Steve comes in chat room, somebody ask him. And we were asking it things, just sat in the darkness. I know it sounds a bit sad, really, guys, but we were asking it things and just letting it record. And we got a message that just said, and we both heard it. It were a bit chilling. It said "kill." We didn't say it. Yeah, and that's just one word, "kill." We've took. Bob's also got a spirit box. It's not the kind of things guys are dabbling, but it doesn't mean that there's no merit in it if people want to use it. You know, who am I to say that it's not worth using because I don't use it? And we've tried that, and I've not had any sort of noticeable results from it. The only thing we got was on the digital voice recorder, and it weren't a garbled sort of voice. It was a definite word, "kill." So there you go. And we've heard electronic voices. We've heard them in the woodlands, at the back of the cliffs and things. Definitely robotic voices. And I'm not the only one. I've had quite a few emails over the years from people telling me that they've heard electronic voices whilst they've been walking on cliff tops in night. It almost sound like robots. How that works, I don't know.
That's good, that, Paul. We're going to quite a lot of questions in the chat tonight, Paul, and thanks everybody for putting a question in there, and I'm sure we'll get around most of them tonight. I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna run the questions up till the top of the hour, and then we'll go for a 5-minute break. Is that all right with you, Paul?
Yeah, what you've got to do. Yeah, it's all good.
Okay, so I think I'm gonna Richard Askham, welcome to the show, Richard. He's got a great question actually. How many incidents are being reported to the police regarding these sightings, and is there anything at all being done about it? So would you know the answer to that one?
I wouldn't know exactly how many incidents have been reported to the police. I know that in 2019 a guy who lived on Lighthouse Road reported these spheres of light to the police, and I managed to get a Freedom of Information request into Coast Guard, and we got a full report back. But I'd have never found out about it. So the person who reported it, if he hadn't have contacted me, it would have just sat in a folder, or in a digital folder, should we say, somewhere within a police station, you know, whatever, however they archive it. And I bet you there's hundreds of them, and not just from around here. I bet that it's just the knowing. It's just, first of all, you've got to word it correctly. You know, if I'd have said February 15th and it was 14th, they'd have said there were nothing on that date. You know, I sound a bit negative, but they're not very helpful, these people. You've got to have it absolutely spot on what you're asking for, or thereabouts, and precise and to the point. And so I think there'll be quite a lot, but as regards the numbers, sorry, I couldn't possibly say.
No, well, it's not something they're going to divulge easily, is it, really?
I just see somebody say, nothing funny going on at Leconfield. I'm a veteran and can testify. Nothing UFO related there. If he wants to message me later, I might be able to surprise him about that.
Because, well, is he talking about the present time? Or
I don't know. I've just seen it. Then
yeah,
it's easy to make a sweeping statement and say there's nothing going on. You know, I can only go on what I've been told. I've got 2 witnesses here that were there when this happened. So, you know, and we're currently pursuing some other channels as well, as in army cadets and things like that. So, as in, there's a connection to their presence when this happened as well. So I'm not knocking what you've just said, nothing going on, but it's easy to say that, you know, you might have been there, but you might not have been there when this happened.
Yeah.
Okay, by the way.
Okay, yeah. Oh, just took a little coffee. It's not COVID, folks. But right, okay. So he's laughing his Paul. I'm just going to say at this point we do have a super chat option in the chat room on the live stream, and if anybody wants to contribute anything at all, it will help us to finish this feature film that we're making. It will help towards funding that and getting that film out. Okay.
Just before you close down here, Les, the guy who talked about Leconfield, I do want him to contact me, because if he were there, or if he's there, if he's had any involvement in Leconfield for a number of years, it could be helpful. It could be really helpful, because I think when I tell him what I've got, the information I've got, you know, it might want to help.
Yeah, sure. And I think we're practically, I think I've just got one more. Yeah, we're just going to switch tack a little bit here, Paul.
Okay.
Question from Paul Hadley. Did you hear about the big cat that ran over there that got reported, Paul? Police said it was a dog a few years back now. I don't know what he's referring to there, Paul.
Yeah, I think we're talking about a puma that got run over or were found on road at Fylingdales, and they reported it. I think it were reported in Whitby Gazette at the time, and we're going back to 2000. I don't know, 2007 perhaps. I'm not exactly sure of the date. I know. I looked into it a little bit, and from what I can gather, a JCB put it in its bucket and took it away. Whether it went onto the base, I don't know. But very little information after that, you know. But it sounds like it's a legitimate thing. It did get knocked over. Thank you, Deborah.
Well, thank you, Deborah. You are a star.
Yeah,
we've just got one more question, Paul.
Okay.
What I can see on this tablet. Bobby Dazzler. Welcome, Bobby. Hey, Paul. The orange dull football sphere last night at Bempton in the field off the main road. Do you know anything about that?
I do, because you contacted me today, and we're gonna get to this. And if I've got the correct name, it's Amanda. And thank you very much. This lady were at Bempton last night to look at the sky, I believe. I didn't go. Bob didn't go, but I know that from what I can gather, on Cliff Lane, parked up in a safe position to be parked, sat overlooking the sea, and looked to her right, which would be looking inland, and she saw, or told me today that she saw, a football-sized dull orange sphere, like just above the hedge. That's just for the briefest of time, 2 to 3 seconds. So it's an interesting one, and thank you for coming on and bringing that up, you know, because I were going to mention it, but it's easy to say, oh, there might be in chat room, but that is great, because it don't make it any more true, but it sort of validates some of the things that we're talking about. And once again, it shows you that there's activity, because when you're looking from parked into that field entrance just off the road where a vehicle was, you're only looking onto farmland. So it's strange that this dull orange fish said it weren't illuminating everything. It weren't like a car headlight or anything like that, just a dull orange sphere. So yeah, great sighting. Thank you.
And just one more thing to say, we just got a super chat in from Steve Lewis.
All right, brilliant. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you for that, and thanks for being you. He's put the little emoji on there, which is fantastic. Right then, we are going to a little short break now, and we'll be back in 2 or 3 minutes. Let's go. We'll see you later. Well, welcome back, folks, and thank you, and thank you again for all the super chat donations. And I'm sure that it's going to help us produce this film that we're making, and it should be out next year. Without further ado, I think we're going to let Paul finish off the Woolsthorpe incidents, and yeah. So, Paul, are you ready, mates?
Yeah. So we as people have heard previously, last week and this week, we sort of ran through 2009, and I've explained that I didn't really capitalise on what was happening as much then. But if we jump now to 2016, I'm sort of researching for the book Truth Proof, and I found myself on the harbour. I was looking into some fighter jets that had crashed off Flamborough Head and other things, and the trawler guys were the people to talk to. I mean, one in particular retrieved a navigator in 1985, and it was that guy that I went to talk to. But during that conversation, he put me in touch with a few other people who'd got a bit of knowledge, and I got talking to a guy who digs and sells bait for the anglers, the beach fishermen and the harbour wall fishermen. He's been there quite a number of years and employs a few beach men who dig the lugworms and things for him. He's telling me his knowledge of things that had happened, and then he said, and I'll tell you something else. He said down at Woolsthorpe, he said my bait diggers saw triangular objects on more than one occasion entering the sea. So with black triangles. And I'm amazed. My ears pricked up. He let me record him. Let me just say that I should say. And I said, have you got a year for this? And he's sort of rummaging around, and he says, I will have, because I've got all my tide tables and I've got everything else. And it's not like a diary that he's making about bait diggers see triangular objects, but he date it. It's 2009. Yeah, so I said, when? Like he said, September 2009. Walking along the beach, they saw triangles entering the sea. So we'd got this kind of interesting story. So I sort of gets myself up to Woolsthorpe. This is my first hint at the story. Not met these people yet. I'd already been told this story, but I'd not started putting dots together. So I go up to the Woolsthorpe, I go up to the boat compound and speak. There's a small boat compound up there, just sort of huts that contain these catamarans, and as we've 16 flats that overlook the sea, and that's it. There's nothing else for miles to the right, to the left, and to the back of you. There's open fields, and that's where the police scientific investigation vans were situated, across the open fields. So I'm sort of digging, and I've got this story about the triangles, and he'd got another story to tell me. He said there's one night in September of 2009, he says, my lads are walking. The tides dictate what time you dig for this bait. So it's got to be low tide, people. Just to put you in picture there, that's why they were there late in the night. He says, and they're walking up with their headlights on to dig. He says, and suddenly they're surrounded by military. Where are you going? What are you doing? He says, well, we're bait diggers. That's what we're doing. We've come to dig bait. He says, you're not going nowhere. He says, and his words were, he says, my lads had a bit off to him. He says, if you don't go now, you won't be going anywhere. So you leave this beach now. So they actually got sort of marched off the beach, but they didn't disappear. The cliffs at Woolsthorpe are only sort of small. It's only like dunes and bit of, like that long sort of, I don't know what they call the grass, but it's not like normal grass. We call it 20-foot high. And they sort of went into the distance, then come back and watched. So the beach lit up with people. They said they looked like they'd got metal detectors. Could have been Geiger counters, I've no idea, but they said metal detectors, and they're sweeping the beach and going up and down the beach. Where? In front of these flats. the 16 flats. Need to stress also that these flats, most of the people who live in them don't live year round. They use them as holiday homes. There's only a handful of people that are ever in that property, those properties, all year round. So that was that story. And so I'm sort of trying to get more on this, and I've still not connected the dots. We've got this 2009. And I'm looking through an archive in Bridlington on the microfilm, and it said visitors catch glimpse of lynx. So I'm thinking I've got a big cat story. And you go, oh, this is good. And then when I read it, it said visitors at South Shore could have been mistaken for thinking they were in a war zone last week when 2 Chinooks and 2 Lynx helicopters swooped in to South Shore and landed on the beach for a top secret military exercise. It's in paper. When I contacted to try and get the Freedom of Information request for this, it said all relevant bodies had been informed. Well, I was going down to the lifeboat station quite a lot at this time, and I know through speaking at staff at the lifeboat station, they'd not been informed, because I took them this news clipping that I'd got and said, do you remember this? He said, oh yeah, we did. He says, because we come out at station and watched the helicopters going up the coast. They didn't know anything about it. The actual land, there's a porter cabin owned by the people who've got the yachts and this, you know, when they said these catamarans and things, they were working on their boats at the time when the military arrived, because they arrived in trucks as well as the helicopters, and they sort of took over the compound and moved them away and moved them out, and they couldn't come anywhere near it. So we'd got the dates then. This was the 15th of September 2009, and then the penny dropped, because I'd been told, I'll just move forward a bit, I'm just getting a few prompts here. I'd been told by this elderly couple, and I sort of reconnected with them and went to speak to them, and it was September the 14th 2009, and they'd lived in this property a lot of years, year in, year out. They didn't go anywhere else. Binoculars on their side. They were familiar with everything that was out over the sea. You know, they were used to it. They'd seen the helicopters, they'd seen the oil rigs, the floating rigs or whatever, not oil rigs, but the floating rigs, and all manner of things. And this particular night on the 14th, this lady and her husband said it was 11 o'clock, and husband decided he were going to go to bed, and she said, okay, I'll lock up, you just get yourself off. So off he goes to bed. And there's a shared light for these properties. So if you live next door, you can put an outside light on, and next door you could turn it off if you wanted. It's just a shared light. They switch either side. She said, I went in, just checked the back door on this little porch, and she said, I thought, oh, they've left outside light on. And what they've done that for? She said it looked a bit illuminated. She said, so I went to turn it off. She said, and it went off. So that's funny. She says, and I stepped inside then, just stepped into the porch, from the porch into the living room. She said, and a voice said to me, go back and look again. And she said, I turned around and I looked, and when I looked out at sea, I spoke to her more than several times. She said, and I went, oh my God. She says, and I could see them over at sea, and it's a very long, shallow beach. She said, I don't know what stage tide we're at, but she said they weren't that far out. She said, and there's a circle of at least 30. She said there could have been 40 of these, probably car-sized from description I've got, blue and white boomerang-shaped objects in a circle, sort of morphing from blue to white. And she said they were in a perfect circle over the sea. She said, and the sea looked like it was a boiling pan of water. She said, and there's electricity, or what looks like electricity going into it, and all sorts of it. It was just crazy. Shouted her husband. He came through and looked. You got a few swear words from him. He couldn't believe, his exact words to me were, I thought it were a Christmas tree over the sea. He said it was just unbelievable. And I'm saying, you know, I'm saying all the obvious, but the stupid things to these people, the things that your armchair ufologist or your own armchair expert would say to somebody retelling this story. Are you sure it weren't an helicopter? I'm trying to get these things out of the way. It weren't an helicopter. She said that it were in front of us. We know what we were looking at, and there's a circle of these things. Well, he'd seen enough. There were two different reactions here to this sighting, and he'd seen enough. He only watched them for a few minutes. He was frightened to death. His exact words were, I went and put my head under the pillow, and I didn't want to even look from under that pillow till morning. And I said to the old lady, I said, what did you do? She said, I stopped. She says, I weren't going to miss this. I've never seen anything like this in my life, and I wanted to see it. She said, you know. So she said, it was just after 11 when she'd seen them, and she's in the darkness. And because I said, did you think of taking a photograph? She said, no. I said, I didn't want to bring any more attention to myself. I'm just watching them in awe. Didn't even put binoculars on them. They were that close. She didn't need to put the binoculars on them. She said, but about 11:30, she said, two of them just moved out and went off. She said, and this continued all the way till about 12 o'clock when there were just two left over the sea. And then they just went straight up. So we've got this incredible story and all this meat in the form of UFO sightings throughout the year to pack around it. And it was September the 14th. The military came on September the 15th because I got the Freedom of Information request. I kept my, I think it's here. And you'll not be able to see it, but I got that sort of thing, and you know, and they came on. I said, can you tell me about any military exercise that might have taken place on the 14th to the 18th? Even though I've just said previous, you know, we've got to keep it as tight as possible. If I'd have said the 14th, I'd have got it wrong, because it was 15th that they arrived. So I had to keep it as, you know, as tight as I could. So it doesn't mean that it was a UFO event that they came for, but it's highly unusual, a top secret military exercise that took place in front of 16 flats that haven't got nothing for miles to the right and miles to the left, and they just chose that spot, you know. And she said the following night the military arrived. She remembers them coming. She says, and they'd got those great big searchlights like they had in the war, scanning the sea. She said, and they were there. I think they were there for 2 days. We know that they were there on the 15th. Once again, I've no proof that it was UFO related, but you've got the story. Now I've got another report which is interesting. I'll see if I can find it. If we've have we time for this, Les?
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
I received this only the other week. So I put new witness to Wilthorpe sighting. So I got it on the 5th of November. And I've spoke to this lady. Originally, she didn't want me to use her name, but now she says I can, and she's willing to be recorded, which is brilliant. It just adds a little bit more strength to what we're talking about. And this is not September, so it proves now that the sightings rolled over almost to this. Well, she says it was November that she'd seen this thing. I received it on November the 5th, but this was November 2009. She's travelling home. I don't know. She'd been to work, and she'd got a work colleague, a young lady outside of her, in the car, and they're on the A165 road, approximately 8:30 to 9 p.m. at night. This is an incredible story, to be honest with you. And as they're driving down this road, they've just passed Fraysthorpe, because as we've said, you've got Barmston, where Eileen Hobson saw the objects. Then you've got Fraysthorpe, and then you've got Wilthorpe. So they've just passed in Fraysthorpe, and they're following this red car. She said it was 4 or 5 car lengths in front of her, and they're just driving along, following this red car. And as they've passed, which I'm sort of guessing is the pull-in where we saw the police scientific investigation vans, because I've been down, this is what I'm like, people, I've been down and drove at 40 mile an hour and counted it, and you've got 30 seconds-ish. So her sighting must have lasted approximately 30 seconds, because she said the red car suddenly started swerving all over the road. She says, and we looked at each other and said, what's the matter with these? Is he drunk? Or is she drunk? What's the matter? And the car slowly came to a halt, and they passed it. And when she looked to her right, she says, below the hedges, and the hedges then, they're a bit taller now, they might be 15, 20 foot now, but we're going back 2009. The hedges then would have been about 5 foot. She says, and below the hedges, she could see this huge object, longer than the two cars, and we've got 4 to 5 car lengths, this huge object travelling at the side of her car, but it extended above the hedge, and it was so tall she couldn't see the top of it. And it had 2 red lights on it, and she's driving all the way down then. So let's say that we've got 20 to 30 seconds and this thing's parallel in her car. Her passenger, I think to say that the passenger was distraught and is an understatement. Literally, and full respect to the lady, she don't want to talk about it because I know that she's asked her if she wants to recount the story or you recall the story, and she's going down, and then you come to the roundabout, which would be to go to Wilsthorpe to the right or to Carnaby. She said, and this thing stopped in the field, lifted into the air, turned and shot straight out to sea at incredible speed. Totally silent. We're talking about the width of a standard road and the hedgerow. She's not mixing it up with a helicopter. She said this thing, 2 huge red lights on it, longer than 4 to 5 cars. Couldn't see the top of it, yet could see the bottom of it, through the hedges and see it above the hedge, but couldn't see how tall it was. So it's an incredible story, and I'm so grateful that I've got people who come forward to tell me these things. And we know that there's more. We know that a call went into Coast Guard in September from somebody else at Wilsthorpe. We'll say they were out walking the dogs. I have no idea what they were doing, but they claimed that they observed 3 orange spheres of light travelling from Hull, which would have been coming from the left, and 2, I think it was, travelling from Flamborough. But what's interesting, she said they went into or were approaching a black yacht sail in the sky. It's a black triangle, isn't it? Do you know? And we know that call went into Coast Guard. I've not been able to access it, but I know it did go in. So somewhere. I mean, chances of these people listening to it, I suppose, are slim. But somewhere there's a driver in a red car in November 2009 that saw this object, because that must have been the reason that he was swerving all over the road and sort of in shock at what he's looking at or she's looking at. So there's a witness there, and we know that there's another witness who saw this perceived black yacht sail over the sea. So basically, people, you've got Wilsthorpe, and I think there's probably more to come, but I've just got to sit on it until it does come, and I'm willing to do that. Just like when we've talked about Hunmanby, there'll be more to come from that. There's a few cases, but you can't just sit waiting for them. You've got to get on with other things. So not exciting, but as interesting as the sound, it's stopped at the moment. It's just started again with this latest sighting from this lady, which I'm very grateful of. But I'm hoping it rolls and rolls. I'm hoping we're going to get more. There's too many components that have all come together for it not to be something of real interest. Don't have to come from space. It could have been something that's been tested. It could be ours. You know what I mean? Everybody not everybody, but people want it to be some kind of exotic science. It could be exotic science, but it could be man-made. Let's keep us feet on ground until we actually know. Some things literally are away in woo, but I can't possibly say with this at the moment. I think the idea when somebody's telling you that they've seen black triangles entering the sea, it's an incredible piece of kit if that's what we've got. And plus the fact, I didn't add on, that the sea there is very shallow. Very, very shallow. And I don't know if anybody's Google Earthed this location, but Google Earth it. I don't know what it is, but just to the right of the flats, there's a pale coloured anomaly under the sea. Could be nothing, but I did notice it. And a few people over the years have sent me the picture and said, have you seen this? So, it'd be nice if somebody can explain what it is. It could be just an outcrop of rock, but it's circular.
Yeah, I think what this shows, Paul, is that, this is all like coming from 2009. You're getting a new witness.
Yeah.
How many more witnesses potentially out there to something along these lines? There must be lots and lots of people who haven't actually come forward.
Without a doubt, Les, that they are there. I'm hoping. If whoever was in that red car had no interest in this subject, seeing something like that must switch you on to the possibility that even if we've said we're not sure where its origins are, there's a possibility that we are not alone. There's something else out there, something that is truly unidentified.
Yeah.
And these things were being. Let's not forget the amount of stuff that were being reported through 2009. The retired police officer David, who I spoke to, I think it was Burton Fleming, and at close quarters he saw this thing that he said it just looked like a crucifix flying flat, covered in lights. Just incredible things. And another thing, the actual objects reported weren't all the same. So what was happening in 2009? I don't know, it just leaves me speechless. I think it's a brilliant story.
It certainly is, Paul, and it's ongoing, as you'll say, which is going to be a good thing. I think there now you're ready for any more questions then, Paul?
Yeah, let's be having a look at them, yeah.
Okay, let's have a look then. Okay, Rachel Mitchell, welcome to the show, Rachel.
Hi, Rachel.
And Rachel is asking, when they were spoken to on the return from Crab Rocks, what was said to them and by whom?
Well, they don't know. There were people waiting for them to speak to them. They don't even know who they were.
And for people probably just coming into the stream, this is where the fishermen went out on the sea, and I think it was 1963, 63 and 67. I found in archives were years of high activity for unexplained phenomena. So if I've got it wrong and it's 67, I apologise. But I think it was 1963. I think it was June 63. And I need to just pick up on something else. To answer your question, they don't know who these people were, but they wanted to know what they'd seen. It sounds a bit like Man in Black type activity to me, but I don't know any more than that. But somebody, I'm not sure who it was, that said one of the radar stations could pick something up the size of a tennis ball. I think it was Fylingdales. Well, let me just, I don't mean correct you, because it's good what you've said, but I found in an archive, and I think this one 1974, that RAF Staxton Wold could pick an object up the size of a golf ball in an 100-mile radius, which is pretty incredible. I've printed it off. I've got the bit of paperwork. It was a copper-coated golf ball, but that came in the archive, and that's 1974. We're going back a lot of years. So God knows what the capabilities of these things are now. It's just incredible. Yeah. Dave Millwall is asking, hi Paul, concerning the cryptids, dogmen, stroke werewolf accounts, they go back to the King Canute's reign. Could they be the same entities? So
who could say? I mean, these.
You've done your bit of history, haven't you? Looking into where the origins come from.
Yeah, these bits of information, these that sort of travelled through time. I mean, we can go to every country in the world, and they've got documentation of what we call dog-headed beings in the legs, arms, which we'd perceive as human, and dogs' heads all over. I mean, the Mayan culture had them. With the Egyptians with Anubis, and lots of different groups throughout the world had them. And you're probably right. I mean, it's there. I know the Vikings, they sort of revered the wolf and the wolf men type entities. It's a crazy thing to be talking about, to be honest with you. You think that the UFO phenomena is a bit off the wall, but then when you come to the cryptids, it's on another level, and it's not something that I really thought I'd be interested in, but I find it absolutely intriguing. Do you know, October the 12th, we had a report of, for want of a better word, a werewolf, just off Bempton Lane on Jewson Lane by a delivery driver. Nothing to gain by saying it. Les knows, because Les has been working with footage. I did a bit of filming with this guy, didn't I? Mm-hmm. But what's interesting, another one's come forward, the same lane but in a different location. Let's say this lane's a mile long. At the beginning of the lane, the month before, they didn't come in that order, people. I got the first one on October the 12th, but then I've got another one for the month previous, September. We've got people contacting us saying that they're hearing strange screams and howls in the woodland in the early hours of the morning. Right, let's hold our hands up. Could be people, could be campers acting about. You know, there's all these possibilities, but I don't know how you're explaining these strange entities. I mean, it were only yesterday I found myself just, I'll not say it, Lane, because I don't want other people to be going up to it, but I found myself in the same location looking at a gate, a steel gate that bullocks, cattle, had bent because something in the early hours of the morning had spooked them, and they were all running down the roads, a large number of them. I went and took photographs of the gate yesterday, and I went looking for prints, if I'm being truthful. I found some prints. I think did I tell today somebody that's probably on here, because they offered to try and help me get casts of them, because the actual ground is swimming in sludge and the stuff that cattle produce, and I'm not going to try and get a print out of that, I'll tell you now. So all I've done is take photographs. So you can see, once again, you can see extent and depth that we'll go to, because as I say, I was doing that yesterday. I'm in forests in North Yorkshire, COVID permitting. I won't be taking a car full of people, by the way. If anybody wants to jump on me for that, I'll only be going for a walk, but we've got us reasons for going up there this weekend. You know, it never stops. And I would not be wasting a large part of my life discussing and talking to people about these cryptids if I didn't think there was some reality to it, however crazy it might sound.
Yeah, that's true. That Paul, if there was nothing there, there's nothing to discuss, is there, Paul? So
that's true, Les. But you'll always get some people who'll believe at all costs, and I hope I'm not one of them. You know, and I know, and you know, we've spoke to these witnesses, and they're first class, decent people. They really are good people, and it's a brave thing to stick your head above parapet and say that you've seen something like they're saying. The paratrooper, I've had another para, tell me about seeing an unusual cryptid, which we're not using for Dark Forest project, but he saw it in Afghanistan of all places, and it terrified him. Fear on another level. Do you know what? It's crazy. Nothing to gain. I mean, I spent 2 hours talking to this guy, you know, and he'll know who it is. I know his nickname, Kez. So if you're listening at any time, mate, I appreciate your story. We can't use it for Dark Forest because we're sticking to East and North Yorkshire, but nevertheless, keep these stories coming. I've got another one, an absolute incredible one, about a werewolf on a military base, and this lady's writing it up to me. She actually saw it. So, you know, it's just nuts.
yes.
I'm the first person to say it's nuts, but it, you know.
Okay, moving on then, Paul. We've got Aldo Rain. Welcome to the show, Aldo. Another good question here. It's a good question, is this one. Has there ever been any reports of noise when these lights struck UFOs, when they've been witnessed? Has anybody reported any noise accompanying these sightings, Paul?
No, none at all. I've never heard anything. I mean, the one that me and Lee Hayward saw, that's probably as close as I've ever been to them. Before that, they've been over the sea, or as Amanda said previously when she saw the sphere last night, just low over land. But me and Lee saw one literally not in the field with us, but on the peripheral of the hillside in 2019, and it weren't one, it was 3, and you'll have heard me talk about this. It was 1 ball and then 2 below it, and they were huge. There were no noise, and they were that close. They were lighting land up. They're creating a halo, and low. And as we're looking at them, trying to get film on them, they're imploding. They've gone.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite telling in a way, isn't it? When there is no noise, because anything mechanical that we build has got noise attributed to it when it's flying in the sky.
Usually has, yeah. I mean, you know, when people talk about, it'll be a stealth aircraft. I mean, there's usually some kind of noise or hum, but on odd occasions, you know, people do report hearing a humming sound. It's strange, because looking into Wilsthorpe, I did, you know, because I wanted to know if anybody else had seen or anything what this couple had seen. The next door neighbour, he'd not seen it, but he remembered them talking about it and not shutting up about it at the time. The one a few doors down in a top floor flat remembered them talking about it. He says, but I wouldn't have seen it because my living room is at the front. So, sorry, I'm just rambling there a bit. But the noise. But one of them did say, odd times when you're in bed on a night, you hear a very, very low-pitched humming sound. He says, but I don't really feel like getting up to have a look what it is. You know, it's not a helicopter. It's just like a generator. It's like a really low-pitched hum, and it feels like it's right above the buildings. So, you know, I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of people have associated the humming sound with the objects. When I spoke to a farmer at up around Cottam back in, I don't know, 2009 probably, he told me about the UFO that he saw over his farm. I think I've talked about this before, so I won't stay on it. But he followed it through the woods. It was just above the tree level. He said, but the only noise it made was like a breeze. It sounded like a breeze, not a hum. He said, and when it stopped at the edge of the woodland. He says, and I followed it all the way back, and then it just went with contours at land and away towards Langtoft. An interesting story, but no real audible noise associated with it, and I can't say as I've heard anything.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Low humming noise, a buzz, electronic generator. That's exactly what some people describe, isn't it?
And there's another sighting, Les, before you get to these next questions.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you know, if there is any more questions. This is October 6th, 2020, because I think it's good.
Can I just come in there? I've just been asked, if anybody has any questions, can you just put them in caps so that Leslie Kirby, who's monitoring our questions tonight, then she can obviously distinguish those from just not ordinary comments, and then she can forward them to us here, and we can read them out for Paul. Yeah, sorry about that, Paul.
No, it's okay. Well, it's good to get these. They're not absolutely bang on recent, but 6th of October is not too far away. Bearing in mind, like I've said, we've been going up there and seen nothing for months and months. Amanda went up last night and saw something brilliant. Yeah. You know, I mean, and she's. Let me just stay with Amanda, because she's been onto cliff tops with me and Bob a few times now, and she's really level-headed. And I don't think she's prone to be imagining she's seen something. She's travelled a considerable distance to actually get to that location. But this other one, 6th of October, this guy just contacted me and a few days ago and said that he was staying at the Premier Inn. He'd been for a meal on the seafront earlier in the night, and it's not a long sighting, this. He says, as he's walking back along the seafront, I think he said it was between 9:30 and 10 p.m, because I do have this in front of me. And he said, I looked over towards Flamborough Head. He said, and it's obviously dark. He says, and I can see a boat, you know, just to the right of Flamborough Head. You can just clearly see the sky and the sea. There's a definite distinction. It's not that dark that is blending things in. He says, and he's lighting a cigarette up. He says, and then he looks to the boat again, and a huge, that's his words, a huge orange disc lit up to the right of the boat in the sky. He sent a photograph, which we've put on the truthproof.uk website, just as a representation of daylight from where he was stood, and put a dot for the boat and obviously an orange blob for the disc. He said when he first told me, he said, I didn't know whether I blinked or looked down at my cigarette. He said, but the next time I looked, it had gone. He contacted me again the other day, actually. He said it were neither of those things. He said, I actually looked round to see if anybody else could see this, because I couldn't believe it. He says, and when I looked back, it had gone. But it just goes to show, we're up there actively searching for this and seeing nothing. And there's people just randomly and luckily getting to see things that, you know, I mean, it must have been interesting enough for this guy to contact me. I don't know most of these people. I know Amanda because she's been up there with us, and it's great that she's finally seen something. But other than that, you know, most of the people who report these things are sort of new to me. And I've got another sighting here, which it'll interest, I think it's Lisa, because it's from 1998, so we've been talking about 1998 again, you know, quite extensively, and it's a good one, this, because there's 3 boys playing football in 1998 in the village of Weaverthorpe. So, and I think that's where Lisa lives, and I know she's contributed a fair bit with questions and what have you. And he describes playing with these other two guys, these young lads, and a huge black triangle, just it's daylight, early evening, slowly just glided over the top of them, silently. Now, for some reason, it frightened him to death, and he pointed it out to the other boys, and they couldn't care less. They just said, oh, yeah, well, that's kind of interesting. And I find that part of the phenomena interesting myself, to be honest. Why they have this effect on some and not on others? You'd think if it was some fear factor, we'd all feel it, But so that's the sighting. He said yes. Oh, he estimated it. I've just got this to be the size of a helicopter. So it's still big. I suppose we've got to decipher whether he's talking about a police helicopter or a Chinook. I've got talking to this guy, so I will get more information. He says a few minutes after the triangle flew over them, helicopters passed overhead in the same flight path. Could this triangle have been somewhat military, being escorted? It's a possibility. Or could it be that the helicopters were actually interested in it? That's a possibility. I guess we'll never know. But once again, 1998 throwing up incredible sightings of triangles. It's crazy. You remember Hummonby, August 1998, the 3 triangles seen by the guy in the warehouse. So, another hot year for UFO-related information.
Yeah,
Right.
I think we've got a question from Nick Mellors. Any updates while we're talking about flying triangles? He's asking any updates on the flying triangle wave from 87 to 88. No, that was a big flap, wasn't they?
I don't have, Nick. I have one for 1998 and another one at the roundabout at Hull. I'm trying to think. Would it be the Hessel Road roundabout? I don't have all the information. We'll talk about that one next week if we've time. I don't have all the information there on that, but it'd be good to speak to you about this, Nick, because I know you've got information on these triangles, and I would like to speak to you more. So thank you for that, Nick.
No, that's brilliant. Yeah. Can I just say at this point that we do have a PayPal account if anybody wants to contribute that way to the Truth Proof live stream. Then it is on the Facebook page, so anybody can access that. So yeah, PayPal account if you want to contribute anything. And thanks for all the contributions that we've had so far tonight on the Super Chat.
Oh, wonderful, thank you.
It's absolutely, I'm overwhelmed. It's been brilliant. And I think we're going to go on to the next question. And it's from Aldo again. Aldo Rain. Have you got the photo of the dark shape you mentioned from last week's show at hand? What was that story, Paul? Just remind me of that one.
Do you know, I can't remember.
Yeah. You might have to just slot a little bit more info in there, Aldo, just to jog our memories.
Having said that, I have got no photographs at hand today, Aldo. But no doubt this is going to come to me, or you're going to supply a bit more information, and we'll try and get it you next week or at some point, definitely. If I said I'd got a photograph of some dark shape, then I will have it.
Just to...
it might have been me. I might be that.
Aldo also is asking, do these objects entering the sea ever make a splash or a wave when entering the water? Has anybody reported?
Good point. I did ask that myself. Obviously, you can't think of everything when you're relaying these accounts, but I did ask that, and they didn't. Just entered the water. But when I was told this, and I know I've said this earlier, and it's quite true. The bait diggers said in chest waders you can wade out a really long distance on this beach, and it wouldn't go above you. So where the bait diggers saw the triangles isn't really, by their own words, it's not possible for them to have entered sea, but they did.
Yeah.
And if they wanted to lie, they'd have said they were further out, but they didn't say that. They actually said to me where they went in, it weren't really possible for them to have gone in. They were too big to have gone in there. Yeah. So that, the plot thickens. It gets even crazy. Just takes another, twist. It's
And a question comes in from Helen Tucker.
Right.
Thank you, Helen, for the question. Hi, Have divers ever been down to see if anything's under the sea?
Once again, I wouldn't know, but as I've just said, Helen, where these things were being seen, it it's not deep enough really for stuff to be happening, or the things that were being reported. As I say, that's what the bait diggers said. Where they saw them go in, they couldn't really have gone in, but they did. So so I just don't know what's happening. Where the circle of objects were over the sea, it would have been fairly shallow.
Yeah.
So what the attraction was there in September 2009, I just don't know. I don't. We probably never will. But if we don't keep digging.
Yeah. I mean, I can just vouch for what Paul's saying there, because on the east coast, it is quite shallow for a long, long way out, especially at Wilsthorpe. And as you get further north towards Bempson, there is a rocky bed under there, and even that's not far under the sea. So, and this is where you saw the triangle of three lights.
We saw the triangle of lights. I think that where we saw them, I've said before, from those cliff tops, you've got between, 18 and 22 miles. We saw them about a mile out, and it was probably, 80 to 100 foot in depth out there. It's a different seabed to what it is at Wilsthorpe, sort of, 4 to 5 miles away. But yeah, and Bob Brown were with me. Now, are they the photographs that people were after? But they weren't shadows. These are points of light out over the sea. Bob got the best ones. I took a decent camera, and I didn't get as good pictures as what Bob got on his phone, unbelievably. No. But he still got the photographs. I mean, what we should do is get a collection of these photographs and put them up at some point, Les.
Yeah, I think people on the chat have given us an idea for future shows. Is that we will get some footage and photographs of what Paul's already got, and footage we can put together to give you a better idea of what the landscape is like on these coasts.
I am just talking about this stuff. Like last week, I played you the trawlerman when he saw the object being pursued by the jets. Just his audio. What I didn't say was the object. I don't think I said. He said it was shaped like, it would just look like a glowing red pencil. That's what he said the object shaped like. But what I'm saying is we could put footage up of the helicopters that I've been talking about today, because I do realise that it's I could just be saying this. Oh, I'll tell them it were helicopters. I didn't really film any, but I've got the footage. And anybody who went to Outer Limits conference will know I've got the footage as well, because we played it all, on the presentation. But it is always good to back up what you're saying with as much information as possible, and that's what we try to do. We're not claiming to have the answers, and I'm not claiming to say that it's extraterrestrial in origin. You'll never get me doing that unless I get some actual concrete proof, and I've no proof of that.
Yeah.
Usual. That's what it is.
Yeah. So I'm just going to remind everybody about the fourth encounter OLM 2021 conference, which is on the 21st and the 22nd of August. It's at the Freedom Centre, which is in Hull, which is the very area where I'm broadcasting from today. And Chris Evers, sorry, Chris. Chris Evers, Chris Evers has put all this together, as he has done in previous years, and it's a fantastic effort to get all these people together. Paul, I see you're on the list for speaking.
Yeah, I said I weren't. I didn't want to do it for no other reason than I'd just become a bit saturated with podcasts, with radio things. But it's good to put the information out. And Chris asked me, would I consider speaking again? And I said I would, and I'm going to talk about the events that have sort of put me in the position I'm in now, or the place I'm in now, and so driven to do the research. And I'm going to talk about the night people and my own experiences with what my own eyes can't deny, beings that I don't think they were from this world, let's put it that way. Not necessarily from space, but I have seen them. It's a frightening thing talking about things like this, people, on air, realising it's going out, because you just can't help but sound crazy saying these things, but you're being disingenuous to yourself if you don't, if you just sit there pretending it's never happened. You can't imagine some of the things, but it's there.
Okay then, Paul. We've got
We're
about 10
about to
minutes.
wrap it up, Les.
We've got about 10 minutes left on the show, and we got a couple of questions have just come in, Paul. So let's have a look, see what I can find here.
I see, Paul, as the map of the area up behind you, if you had just point out some of the locations of the map that are being discussed. Well, I don't know how much you can see, guys. Well, I do, because I can see, can't I? But
Yeah,
you've got Flamborough Head. This point is Flamborough Head. These clusters, it's difficult to see, but up there, if we can just tilt it up there, you've got Flixton, and that's where a lot of the reports of the cryptids have come from. You've heard us talk about the Flixton werewolf, and when the animal mutilations were taking place in 17 and 18, there's a lot of red dots and all the way along the coast and up the coast towards Ravenscar and down the coast a bit further inland at a place called Ticton, and livestock were being killed in unusual circumstances. I mean, some people will want to say it's dogs. I'm not going to hold my hand up and say it's alien related. I know there's some researchers out there that just literally want to jump on that hypothesis. That's a big word for me, innit? But the thing is, we don't know. But all we can say is it's highly unusual. Just stay with cryptids for a moment. Eyes removed, ears sliced off. Sorry for sounding a bit graphic here, people, but we're not showing you pictures, so you get the idea. And it weren't just sheep, it were badgers, foxes, deer. I found all manner of animals in this condition, most of them uneaten. So you think to yourself, well, could it be humans? They've got to be pretty smart to catch a deer, because there were no wounds on these animals, apart from these traumatic wounds with what I've just explained, what I've just described. So yes, it's a strange one. And I don't know how I landed at the cryptids, them people, but that's my brain.
Yeah, so just a reminder for anybody who's coming to the stream late, you can find all of Paul's books on the Amazon website, where you can buy any of those. These are on Kindle as well, aren't they, Paul?
They're on Kindle as well, but remember, you can get them on the truthproof.uk website, anybody that wants the books. And I've just seen that the name's just gone past that quick, but he's messaged me about Leconfield. Thank you. Because, anything, I know probably you've not got any information that you could give me, because you've already said nothing happened at Leconfield, but you might be interested to find out what I've found out, and it may change your mind. You might tell me it's a load of rubbish, but we'll see.
Okay, I've just got to mention thank you, David Bennett, for the super chat donation. I've just noticed in the stream, and I'm just looking down there. Anybody who we haven't mentioned?
Well,
thank you, Tino. Thank you, Tino, again. Yeah.
Well, just thank you, everyone. And Lee Roscoe, brilliant show, Truth Proof. Thanks, Lee. And it's been great. We passed a few hours on, and just well.
Yeah, Alf Hooker, a great donation from Alf, and he's put a tag on there saying "Hate none, love all, we are one." That's
excellent.
That's sounding pretty good. Harris family in Oz, $10 Australian. Thank you very much, Harris family in Oz, and I'm glad that you've enjoying tonight's live stream. Now we can say a little bit about what's happening in the future. I think we have a guest on next week, and I'll let Paul tell you about next week's guest.
Yeah, fingers crossed. There's Deborah Hartswell and Deborah Singleton and Lisa. Anybody I've missed, just thank you for supporting. Yeah. Brilliant. I really appreciate it. And David, Alan, I could look at this and I'll just be going on with names, so I'll have to just jump from that, guys. Sorry. Yeah, next week, all being well, we've got Nigel Wright on. It's sort of veteran. I want to call him a ufologist, but I think it's all things unexplained. I suppose we'll get to it when we speak to Nigel, fingers crossed, next week at 6 p.m. He's a wealth of knowledge. He's been involved in subject for a lot of years. I know he's researched the big cats. He's researched UFOs. I dare say, haunting type phenomena as well. So I'm quite looking forward to it. I mean, I think what he's got to say will be really interesting. And then I think the following week, or at least in a few weeks' time, we'll have Chris Evers back. I don't know if you knew that, Les. He's going to be talking about he's done 30 editions of OLM magazine, Outer Limits magazine, and he's going to talk about his favourite cases from each issue. We're never going to get through them, so we'll probably have to have him on again, you know.
That's going to be fantastic, Paul. It's very commendable for him to get to the 30th edition.
And then, I don't know, a week after that, we're going to be talking to Pierre Sabac. Now, if anybody doesn't know that name, I suggest that you Google it and start looking, because the guy's, my opinion, the guy's a genius. He's up there with top ufologists in the world, and that's not Paul Sinclair saying that. That's other ufologists who've looked at his work. He's written a few books, I think, The Murder of Reality and Holographic Culture, and they're brilliant. The guy's a genius. I'm looking forward to speaking to him. He can run rings around me when it comes to the knowledge. Is really worth talking to.
Oh, that's brilliant, that, Paul. And I've got to say thank you to Leslie Kirby for giving us all the questions for tonight's stream, because Paul probably agree with me. We'll get that many questions in from you good people out there that sometimes we don't just catch everyone. So obviously we've got somebody there. Leslie is capturing all the questions, and then we can obviously get them read out and answered.
It's great help. It's invaluable, because I'd never see half of them. Just see odd ones, and then Leslie's catching most of them, isn't she? And any that aren't captured, guys, if that's the word, I'm sure that Leslie will keep them till next week, and then you can just fire them across at us. So on that note, I don't think I have anything more I can add to this, Les.
No, I think I'm just going to finish off now, Paul. It's just when I can get lined up somewhere. Just bear with me.
Thank you.
Here we go. Right, transition. There we go. Right, okay. So thanks everybody for coming in tonight's live stream. As we've said, Paul, I know, has really enjoyed himself tonight, and he always does when he comes on with me. And also, we've got to thank everybody, all you good people in the live stream. Now, let's have a look. I was going to mention something about Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th, but it's eluded me from the page. So obviously, I hope nothing has befell any of you guys out there Friday the 13th. We seem to have had a successful stream. And all I can say is, good night, everybody. And good night from Paul. Are you there, Paul?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. I thought I were off air. Sorry, guys.
Oh, no, don't stand. No, we're still on air, Paul.
Thank you. I was just typing it, actually. So thank you, everybody. Really enjoyed it. And let's just stay positive. Good luck with the lockdown, and we'll see you next week, all being well.
I'll endorse everything Paul says. Right, good night, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.